How can I endure to see the evil that will come to my people, or how can I endure to see the destruction of my countrymen? So these people are usually empathetic. They feel like other people's pain. They can put themselves in like other people's shoes. That's a strong gift of mercy. Usually, these people will be brought to tears when they see like suffering, or they feel like something's not right. The book says on mercy, beyond the average capacity to empathize with those who are suffering and miserable, and to manifest a sympathetic love of God to them in some practical way with a cheerful spirit. The gift of mercy is more than a general, tender-hearted, compassionate attitude. People with this gift will both strongly empathize with others' feelings and take specific action to express God's love by alleviating their suffering. So I think that's a really cool one. I believe it's my spiritual gift, so I've kind of partial to it. So what's the next one's teaching, correct, Jerry? Okay.
And we chose Paul.
Yeah, that's what I chose too.
Yeah, it seemed like Paul really was the studious type. Even before he became a Christian, he was a student of the Old Testament law, and then when God got a hold of him, he continued kind of in that vein and liked to study things and debate with those that weren't Christians and show them the way.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, he's probably like one of the greatest teachers ever. I mean, as far as like his letters, something that I really like. Romans is probably my favorite written by Paul, just because it's like a really good theological work. It starts out like with the cross or with man being sinners, and then the cross, and then like how we're supposed to live as Christians. Kind of like a perfect theological work if you go through the whole book of Romans. It's really, really well laid out. Another thing I noticed about Paul is he uses a lot of questions and answers to teach, and I think like that's a sign of a good teacher is they make like their students think. So whenever you read Paul, it's always like there's these questions, and usually they're rhetorical, and you can answer them in your head, but that's just one of the tools that he uses. If you look at 1 Corinthians 12:28, or actually 29, it says, he's referring to people having all the gifts, or having just one gift. And he's trying to make people understand that all people shouldn't have just one spiritual gift, because that wouldn't work. That's why God created us all differently. He says, are all apostles, are all prophets, are all teachers, are all workers of miracles? Do all have gifts of healing? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? For earnestly desire the best gifts, and yet I show you a more excellent way. So it's kind of like, of course, the answer to these is no, not all people do all those things. So but that's just one of the ways that he uses talk. He also likes to use examples a lot. He uses like the body of Christ and how we're all in the body, and he makes examples. Does the mouth say this? I'm not part of the body because I'm not. So he likes to use examples in his teachings as well. Funny story about Paul that's not really related, but I just think it's kind of like some humor in the Bible, but it's in Acts 23:3-5, and actually Paul's in some trouble with a lot of like the Pharisees, and he's before the Sanhedrin, and he says to Ananias, who's the high priest, but he doesn't know it, he says, God will strike you, you whitewashed wall, for you sit to judge me according to the law, and do you command me to be struck contrary to the law? And those who stood by said, do you revile God's high priest? Then Paul said, I did not know, brethren, that he was a high priest, for it is written, you shall not speak evil of a ruler of your people. So it's a good thing he knew that afterwards, but he didn't understand that Ananias was the high priest, and so he's kind of like, ooh, like that's probably not a good thing to say to like God's chosen person. So it's kind of like a funny moment there for Paul. But anyways, I thought that was pretty interesting. Teaching, according to the book, says the spiritual capacity to interpret, clarify, and preserve the truths of God. Teaching passes the torch from one generation to the next and links the present with the earthly life of Jesus Christ. Using this gift involves not mere talent to impart information, but spiritually energized, clear communication of concepts that compel life-changing action. So obviously, like Paul's a really good example of that. So, and we're on to our last group, who is the miracles.
No, actually, we're leadership.
Oh, you changed on me. Okay, that's fine. That's okay.
Okay. So we were thinking of some good leaders and some bad leaders, and then we came up with a verse that describes like how good leaders should be. For some of the good leaders, like a lot of the kings, like Solomon and David, were good leaders, and like Moses, and like how they followed God's work and like got people together and did and created action.
We were also thinking Pontius Pilate was a leader, and he led people to a not so positive outcome.
Yeah.
And it just kind of demonstrates the power that leaders have,
Mm-hmm.
and that gift inspires other people in any different way possible.
Yeah, there's some great examples there. I picked David, and the reason I did was because I think a leader can be best recognized by their followers. Like you can look at the people who follow them and be like, all right, if the people who followed them are great, then that person was a great leader. If you look at 2 Samuel 23:8, just flip to really quick. I put these little notes here because there's a lot of verses to look up, but I think it's confused me even more. I'm trying to find them. Anyways, the whole section here is called David's Mighty Men, and it's like these 30 guys I think they choose that were just like awesome, like men of like war and won some great battles for David, and they loved David, and they would like have laid down their lives for him. And so I think that's just like a testament to what a great leader that God had made David. Like you said, they usually have a vision and they lead people that way. They also take a lot of risks, and people are usually naturally drawn to them. There's something about leaders that you're like, I think that person can be trusted and I can follow them. According to our book, leadership is the spiritual capacity to attract and energize people by creating a vision or a hope for the future and inspiring people to make that vision a reality. The gift of leadership involves dreaming about the future, being willing to risk making changes, knowing which changes are worth the effort, and building teamwork by enlisting and inspiring others. Effective use of this gift involves balance between corporate and individual needs. So definitely not an easy thing to do, and an easy gift to have, leadership. So now I was going to kind of walk through the rest of them. We'll try to do it as quick as we can because there's a lot of them, and we're going to be short on time. So, anyways, one of the first ones, which is I don't think I ever explained the difference or the driving force gifts in the clusters. Explain that a little more in depth. Driving force gift, the book has chosen a few which are basically part of a gift cluster where you don't have just one gift. Usually you have like a series of many, and then that one is like your main one. It kind of drives you to do all those other things, all those other spiritual gifts that Paul talks about. So like it has stars next to the one in the book here. It says evangelism, mercy, teaching, prophecy, exhortation, service, giving, administration, and pastoring are all like the driving force, and then everything else is kind of like a subcategory of those, which we can also do. Does that mean you can't have two driving force gifts? No, it doesn't. You can still have two. Usually one will be more predominant. So we're going to take a look at apostleship. These first 5 gifts that we covered they're gifts for reaching people. Okay, so apostleship, usually when you think of that, you think of like a missionary type person, Apostle Paul. In the book it says, a special leadership capacity in which one is sent cross-culturally to establish new local churches and new works that are needed to enhance the spread of Christianity. Full-scale apostleship includes conversion, baptism, growth, and establishing organized fellowship, i.e. church planting. Apostleship in America today may be transcultural in that it reaches an unchurched subculture within our nation, such as the youth culture. So these people really like to go out, they're frontiersmen. They go out, they find new people, new places where the gospel hasn't gone to yet. I think one of the great examples that I tried to pick here was the disciple whom Jesus loved, who's John. And that's what he refers to himself as. But I kind of wanted to take you through